All right, everyone. Welcome to episode 6 of Rollercasters.
I can't believe we made it to 6.
Me either.
That's crazy. 6
Your-
episodes.
Your favorite roller coaster and theme park podcast. Number 1 in the world.
With fresh new haircuts.
Yeah, we both got haircuts. That's crazy. I feel unfortunate for the listener-only people. Audio-only people. Because we look good right now,
too.
bro.
Me too. For every episode, you get the extra treat of getting to stare at us while we talk about this. If you watch on YouTube, shout outs to the YouTube watchers and subscribers. And if you're not one of them, please subscribe to the YouTube. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We got some new people from the last episode though, so y'all were leaving comments. What was the one comment? Something about the roar.
Yeah.
Which brings me into what this episode's about. Someone asked about a B&M roar. And this episode is all about B&M.
This episode is all about the B&M roar specifically. We're going to talk for 1.5 hours about the sound that B&Ms make.
Just the sound. But yeah, before we get into that, Chris visited another park recently.
I have a trip report. I got some new credits. I got some new credits a couple weeks ago. And I went to a park that is often besmirched by the roller coaster enthusiast community. And I have lived very close to this park for a lot of my life now and have never been because of the bad reputation primarily, and mostly because there's better parks near me. But I finally went to Six Flags America in Upper Marlboro, can't pronounce that word, Maryland. And I actually had a really fun day. The ride lineup is definitely weak. It definitely lived up to that expectation and to that reputation. But I did have a really good day. I rode all 8 roller coasters except for I didn't ride the kiddie coaster. I'm too fat for kiddie coasters. And some adult coasters too. But I skipped the kiddie coaster, but I was able to ride Joker's Jinx, Superman Ride of Steel, Batwing, Wild One, Firebird, Roar, Raging Cajun, and the absolutely legendary Vacoma SLC Mind Eraser. I'm here to confirm the rumors.
No.
It is exactly that bad. It is exactly that bad. And honestly, out of the bunch, Superman Ride of Steel was sick. Superman Ride of Steel is tentatively in my top 25 right now. It was really fun. The layout makes no sense whatsoever. Like there's no part of that there's a lot of straight track, like just absolutely straight flat track. It makes no sense, but it's really fun. First drop is awesome. Good airtime. The helixes are fun. I rode it like close to 30 times. Front seat, back seat. There was nobody at the park. There was nobody there. just me and the rides. So awesome ride. Wild One, over 100-year-old coaster. Extremely fun. Very reckless. Feels dangerous. Exactly what I'm looking for in a Woody. Really, really fun.
Respect.
And I would actually say that my surprise of the day was Batwing, the Vacoma Flying Dutchman. I got lucky. It was open for about an hour total for the whole day, as is custom with that ride. And I got on it first thing in the morning. Super forceful, really fun. The restraints were reasonably comfortable. It's certainly not a B&M flying coaster, which we will certainly talk about on this episode.
We will.
But it was a fun ride. But yeah, I really wanted to give Mind Eraser the moment that it deserves, because I'm telling you, Six Flags knows how bad this coaster is. The station is super run down. They had like one person working, like she was running back and forth between like the control box and like checking restraints. Didn't care at all. It's like at a dead end. It needs a paint job. It's awful. It's very fitting. It was perfect. And I had never ridden a Vacoma SLC before, like the older ones.
Really?
And so I never. It was my first.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so I texted this to you. it seems like they designed the restraints with like inflicting pain in mind. Like that's what they wanted when they were like, how are we going to design these restraints? It came down on my shoulders in such a weird place. Like I feel like I had a lot of pressure right here for some reason. So I had bruises for like a week on both of my arms. And I'm 6'4", and the restraints were still like up here somewhere, and my head was just banging around. It was really, really bad ride.
Dude.
And I'm gonna make a really hot take right here, right now, which is that it was so bad that it was almost good. It was so bad that it was remarkable. Like I'll never forget that ride. So I kind of loved it in that regard, that it was so horrendous. Someone designed that and spent money on that, and it was that bad. I kind of like that. It's kind of cool. But yeah, overall, good trip. They have a B&M in the park, and it is my least favorite B&M I've ever been on. So I'll just put it that way. I'm kind of iffy on the.
I believe we talk about its old version. I think.
Yeah, the first ever.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm real iffy on the stand-up to floorless conversion now. It does not work. And in my head I thought that it would, and it didn't. The layout doesn't.
You don't even think it's like worth making it slightly better or like less rough? It's just not worth giving up the stand-up.
I don't know. Like Green Lantern is the stand-up that I ride. I don't ride that frequently because I don't like it. But I think for what it is, like it's okay. Like some people like it. I think that it's better than Firebird. And Firebird is not a stand-up anymore. So I don't know. And it's similar. The layouts are like kind of similar. So I'm not sure. But yeah.
Green Lantern
just
like
to conclude,
bigger, right?
Go ahead. Yeah, Firebird was like pretty compact. I don't know. It was painful too. It was really, really rough. Really, really rough. But yeah, overall fun little trip. Wandered around the park by myself all day. And like I said, rode Superman 30 times, rode Wild One 15 times, and had a good day. Got 8 more credits. So
let's go.
Good day. Good start to my credit hunting for 2021.
All right. Well, I guess we dive in, folks. So I guess we'll start with like the reason why we wanted to do this company first, maybe.
Sure.
I think we kind of both agreed. We talked about it a little bit, but this is another we felt like is a good follow-up to the Arrow episode, because this is another very important manufacturer who has done some innovating, I would say, and has made a staple. The main difference is they're still rocking.
Yeah, they're mostly still good. Yeah. The existing coasters too, from the same time period when Arrow was still making coasters, are actually still good for the most part. Yeah, I agree, and I think like we touched on it in the Arrow episode, that Arrow sort of got nudged out and kind of pushed into irrelevance by some newer manufacturers. And I think B&M was the big one, along with Intamin. And so I think it is, I agree, it's a great follow-up that, this is sort of the first. B&M was one of the companies in that first wave of like what we view as being modern roller coasters as they currently exist.
Yep.
And I love B&M. They're not my favorite manufacturer. You like to tell people that they are. But they are certainly one of my favorite manufacturers. And
same.
Yeah, I love B&M.
So yeah, I guess we'll start by giving you the full name, because I'm sure many of you have heard us say B&M multiple times, like outside of this podcast even. I don't ever really hear people say the full name ever. Like, I can't really confidently say that I can think of anyone who says the full name.
I'm just waiting for you to say it.
I mean, which way
I want you to say it.
There's I'd say there's 2 main ways people say it, which is like Bolliger and Mabillard.
Bolliger and Mabillard.
Bolliger and Mabillard. And then there's the way you said
Bolliger.
it, right? Bolliger.
Yeah, Bolliger
and Mabillard.
and Mabillard. Mabillard.
Yar,
The
no
D is
D.
silent. Yeah.
And the L's are
Who
a
knows?
Y sound.
Who knows? We should call them. We should put a letter in the mail. How do you pronounce your name?
But yeah, they were found by Walter Bolliger. Bolliger. And Claude Mabillard. In 1988. Another older, I guess, company. One of the probably one of the oldest that's still around, I'd say. I feel like I can confidently say that.
Took them a little while to get into making their own stuff. But yeah, fairly old, older than me, which
older than me too.
That's pretty old.
Only by a few years, but they got us.
Yep.
But yeah, Walter was president and Claude was VP for the company when they started, and they were based in Switzerland.
Yep.
I think we had the city too. Monte, Switzerland. We're probably saying that wrong. We're probably saying that wrong.
Jesus.
Yeah, they started small, 4 people, and now they have more than 30 consistent employees.
I'm surprised they don't have more, actually.
Yeah, I saw that.
When I saw that number, I was kind of surprised.
Yeah, I was like, in my head, like, manufacturers are like a big, like, well-oiled machine in my head. I don't know.
It just goes to show that if you're thinking about trying to get into a career in the roller coaster industry, you should quit. You should not try, because there's probably 100 jobs apparently, based on my quick math right now.
At least one where you'll get paid decent, and your company's actually making stuff.
Right. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. Sort of their backstory, that they were both working for Giovanola, and they sort of started their own company to supply rides. Like they were more interested, from what I read, they were more interested in supplying parts. And they were like the subcontractor for Intamin on a bunch of stuff. Before they started doing their own thing. And yeah, it's funny, there's sort of like the little bit of overlap between Intamin, that they did their version of the stand-up, and then once B&M built it, right? Like B&M built those coasters, and then when B&M decided to start building their own stuff, they basically did the same thing. They just made it better. Like they just did their version. And so you can kind of trace back, like there are a handful of Intamins out there that look like B&Ms.
Yeah.
Because B&M built them. And there are some Giovanolas that have a lot of similarities with B&M, because that's where B&M came from.
Rip the track design. Another, what's the word?
I didn't know this either. I didn't know this. Like, I've talked a lot of shit about Vacoma for what they did to Arrow, and I was talking a lot of junk on our Arrow episode about Vacoma.
I'm gonna expose myself here.
The same thing, pretty much.
I knew this before researching for this episode, because I thought when I first got into like manufacturers and all that and started learning about them, I thought like Titan and Goliath were B&Ms for a little bit.
Yeah.
And
I thought Goliath was a B&M.
Yeah.
For like years, actually.
Yeah. So these are like 2 hypercoasters that Giovanola built over Texas, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Titan's at over Texas. Goliath is at Magic Mountain, both Six Flags parks. But the track design is almost identical to B&M's track design, because when they left the company, Walter and Claude, when they left Giovanola, they continued to use the track design that them two created. So
yes,
another likely story of people leaving a a company or helping a company, and then them kind of stealing from them, I guess.
It's fun. I think it's like it's certainly not unique to this industry, but like this is the one that I care about. So I find it especially interesting, like when you can draw the tree of like
Mm.
where everybody came from and like who worked
Oh
for
yeah.
who and where all these different inspirations overlapped. That there are like, you know, some like huge, gigantic like legends in the industry that worked for X, Y, and Z, and you can see the crossover. Sorry about that. You can see the crossover. I'm Italian. I talk with my hands. You can see the crossover in design, and that's like you mentioned. Like if you knew the bare minimum about what you were looking for, like
Mm.
stuff that we talked about in our beginner's guide episode, and you go and you see Goliath or Titan, you might go, Zach and Chris would be proud of me. I know that's a B&M, but it's not because it's, you know, there's that overlap between,
Yeah,
you know,
dude.
B&M working with Giovanola.
It's just it's just crazy to me how like you can probably find that most of the manufacturers in some way are connected to another one. In
Yeah.
some way, whether that's like a person
Yep.
like going from one to the other, or if like they help build stuff, like
Yep.
one company helped the other company build stuff. Like there's so much interweaving with the manufacturers. It's kind of crazy and interesting to learn about. There's a lot doing these last 2 episodes about the manufacturers that we did that I never knew.
Yeah, I mean, like, just to, like, you know, jump back to our Arrow episode, Arrow the company Arrow spurned the creation of Morgan. Alan Schilke worked for Arrow, who is now designing, like, you know, arguably the greatest roller coasters on the planet with
Mm.
RMC. Morgan ended up being Chance Morgan, which is a whole different thing, that are making cool coasters. Like, it's just interesting. There's, like,
Just
you can draw this
crazy.
kind of diagram all over the place and connect all these different companies and people in this industry, in this what would seem like a large industry that's apparently, like I said, 100 people
Yeah. Yeah.
really calling the shots. But
See,
yeah, interesting connection there.
I don't think we touched on it yet, but they did help design Giovanola's first stand up at Magic Mountain with Shockwave
Yep.
in 86. Yeah.
Yep.
If you look at the picture, if you're watching the visual podcast, you can probably see that as we move on, this looks a lot like the B&M track.
Yep.
So I guess they didn't technically see. I don't think it's not the same case as it was with Arrow. I don't think
No,
they stole the track
they didn't
design. They
steal
just
it. No.
continued to, yeah. So I misworded
Yeah.
that. This is a
It's like
different
if I
case.
worked it's like if I worked at X company and I thought of this, some brilliant idea while I was there, and then I gave it to them because I worked for them, and then I was working on it, and then I went and started my own company and just kept doing the things that I was doing at the old company. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that like the main issue is that when they left Giovanola, they basically said, "We're not going to compete with you. We swear. Like we're doing something different. We're doing this small niche piece of the amusement industry." And then they ended up being like, "Nah, fuck that." Then they started building their own roller coasters anyway. So I'm assuming it wasn't contractual because I didn't see anything about a lawsuit or anything like that. But I am pretty sure that's like the one like sort of sketchy thing that occurred there is that they promised them, "We're not going to do this. We promise." And then they basically just made Giovanola models but better.
Yeah.
And you know, that's why you don't hear about Giovanola being a big manufacturer because B&M took over that space in a really big way. Took a little while, but they did.
Yeah, and I don't think I don't know much about Giovanola really, but I do know they like were not around long after those 2 left
Yes.
to start B&M. So
kind of makes you wonder.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess when they left, they originally agreed with each other that they weren't going to do amusement park attractions anymore at all.
Whoopsies.
I guess they changed their minds pretty quickly because they were contacted by an engineer at Six Flags Great America.
Great America.
Yep. And I guess he works with the duo on Z-Force, which was a juvenile ride, I think, right?
Yes.
And then I guess it was originally to redesign trains for an Intamin. Giovanni built Intamin bobsled coaster, which I don't know how that
Z-Force
works.
was actually an Intamin, by the way.
Oh, it wasn't Intamin.
Mm-hmm. I just double checked.
Which is crazy because when you think of it, when you think of it like now or like a couple years ago, like those two were people like kind of viewed them as enemies almost, I guess. Like they were battling it out in the coaster wars is what it was referred to as, Intamin and B&M. And then come to find out they worked.
I should have written it down. I should have written it down, but I was watching a documentary about B&M a couple days ago. And they were talking about how like literally the trajectory was essentially that B&M was building the coasters for Intamin, and they look, like I said, they look like B&Ms. It's the same as the Giovanola. There's only a couple, like it's not very many.
Yeah.
But there was a couple of stand-up coasters that B&M did for Intamin that are Intamin that look like B&Ms, and then B&M basically just came through and said, yeah, like literally it went from being like they were working with each other and B&M was a sub on these Intamin contracts to all of a sudden, yeah, the coaster wars that they are like, you know, at the time the two biggest and greatest manufacturers competing with each other for who can do crazier stuff.
Yeah. And I say
it's interesting how that happened.
They ran the steel coaster game up until kind of recently.
Mm-hmm.
Like them and Intamin just kind of were running anything to do with steel coasters. It was them two, really.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, I guess after that, the success from that project led to Great America then asking them to design a new stand-up coaster for their park.
Well, we didn't talk about what the project was, did we?
Which one?
Because the project was redesigning the trains for a bobsled coaster. We talk about that?
Yeah, I said that, and then you.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's when we went into Intamin. It's really it's actually confusing to read. Like to go along with this.
Z-Force is not the bobsled coaster.
Yeah.
Okay, Z-Force. I was saying that Z-Force was an Intamin coaster, and then they moved over to the
I
Great
might have
Adventure
confused
project
you
to
with the
redesign
notes,
train.
but like
Oh, yeah.
the reason Six Flags Great America contacted them is because of Z-Force.
Yeah,
and they were contacting
the
them.
To do was to redesign the trains. That was like their first. The only reason I think it's important to like make sure we've solidly pointed that out is that their first actual project as B&M in the amusement industry was to redesign the trains for a shitty bobsled coaster. And that's what got them started in like doing stuff in the amusement industry, like as a full time as a company.
We're trying our best to make this the least confusing as possible for people who know nothing about these manufacturers to begin with. But yeah, that then led to them building a ground up coaster for them, stand up coaster, which was popping in the 90s, dude. That was a big thing. And then I guess they accepted the project from Six Flags Great America for the stand up coaster as B&M this time. This is their first coaster. And they ended up hiring 2 more people. And I guess when they first like started the project, they had nowhere to manufacture the steel.
Yeah, it's funny. Like the way this story is told is really funny, and I've never heard it. The two of them don't do interviews very often, so there's not very much out there. And and you don't hear much from employees. So like the way that the story has been told on the internet is like they're like, hell yeah, we'd love to build this stand up for you. Let's do it. And then they're like, shit, actually we don't have anywhere to make the track. Like so like I don't what are we going to do? And there's no way that's how it went down, but that's literally that's how the story gets told, is that they were like, wait, like we're a roller coaster company now? Totally forgot we need to build track. That's important. But yes, they contacted Claremont Steel Fabricators, who I still do their track today.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure they continue to have a partnership.
As far as I can find, they're still the company they roll with.
But yeah, Claremont had done the track for Vortex at Kings Island. And B&M was impressed with them, and they have been in a partnership ever since.
Which can I point this out too, because this makes it even more confusing. Not confusing, but like, I guess, what the fuck is the best way to describe it.
Sure.
They saw Vortex and Arrow.
Yep.
Their track layout, nothing like what the B&M guys were doing, even with Intamin and Giovanola. And they were like, close. You could probably do our track. Like they didn't contact like the people they were using with Intamin or I mean, maybe they did.
Yeah.
But as far as I could find with like researching, is that they saw Vortex at Kings Island and Arrow Looper, and we're like, help us.
That is weird. I hadn't thought about that. That is
so weird. It's so strange.
Very, very strange.
Yeah, apparently they're still doing that with Claremont Steel.
I'll say it, dude. Claremont builds some goddamn good steel track. I'll tell you that. They have done a very nice job over the history of B&M building that track. But yeah, ironically, strangely, I hadn't put this together. B&M has been building coasters since the year I was born. My entire life, the year I was born, B&M started building coasters, and my whole life
they've been building baby.
That's really cool. In 1990, they built their first ever coaster, Iron Wolf, at Six Flags Great America, which is a stand-up coaster that I rode 2 weeks ago as Firebird, the B&M floorless.
Which you loved?
It's funny, like no, definitely not. But it's funny you brought up how stand-ups were like the craze in the 90s. It's so funny to me to think that B&M's first couple coasters, the first model that they started manufacturing, was their worst. Like, I think that's really funny that like they came out with their worst model first. And I guess that makes sense. They've gotten better, I guess, was what you'd assume. But like, man, I hate stand-ups.
I kind of see it as like they kind of played it safe at first and did what they were doing with the other two companies, which obviously also not great later on.
Yep.
But I think like once they break out of this stand-up, as we move on, you're gonna see it's like stand-up. Yep. Once they break out of that is when they just take off, dude. Like gone out the gate.
Well, and it's I don't know, like it was funny to watch, like in doing research for this episode, it was funny to watch the advertisements for like Iron Wolf and stuff, like the commercials, and the way that they describe like the standing up phenomenon on stand-up coasters. It's like the most extreme roller coaster ever built because you're standing up. And it's like, I think back to like, if something like that came out today, something that different, I'd be like, oh shit, like, oh yeah, that's awesome. You stand up. Yeah. We usually sit down.
I feel like,
but it's not a good model there.
We could probably, for anyone who has never been on a stand-up coaster, it's kind of not exactly standing up, I guess.
No, you've got like a bicycle seat holding your shit up.
Yeah, you're like straddling a bicycle seat, and your feet are on the ground, so I guess you are kind of standing, but you're not like just free standing on a roller coaster. You're kind of like on a seat.
You have to adjust. The important thing to note is that you have to adjust the height when you get on. And if you have a very limited time to do it because the train needs to leave the fucking station. And so if you don't get it just right, you are going to be so uncomfortable for the whole ride. You're either going to be sitting on this tiny little bicycle seat with your feet on your tiptoes,
Yeah.
or you're going to be slouched down all crumbled up like when you're supposed to be standing. And it's hard to get it right. It's really hard to get it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, enough about that. I'm getting, I want to talk about the models that I love
Yeah, that's why I kind of
from this
like.
company.
I mean, the pictures really weren't that impressive either, so I didn't really grab pictures of all these stand-ups they did. Yeah, I mean, we saw the one in the beginning. Just imagine that like 3 more times as we move on here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was 90. They built the first one. 91, they built Vortex at Great America, which is converted now as well, I think. Yeah.
What else did they do? What'd they do next? Say it.
Vortex at Carowinds.
This reminds me of the Arrow episode where everything was called Corkscrew. Like, very familiar.
I mean, that same year though is when they woke up.
Yeah, they had been
You want to
working.
get
They had been
into it
working
because
on something.
I haven't been on one of these, so I'll let you take this one. I feel like you can say more about it.
Yeah. So they were working on something. And so obviously, you think of a roller coaster in your head, and typically you're sitting on top of the track and you're riding around and whatever. So B&M, in my opinion, perfected the concept of inverted roller coasters. And their first one ever was Batman the Ride at Six Flags Great America, which has been cloned, I don't know, 1,000,000 times, 2,000,000 times.
I could probably look it up.
Probably like 10.
I don't want to
Maybe
risk
more.
like fucking up Streamlabs, so which is what we recorded. Don't make fun of us.
Let's put it this way.
At least 10. Can we say that?
At least 10. At least 10. This particular model and this particular design was so good and so popular, wildly popular, when it came out in 1992 that they just cloned it over and over and over and over again because it was such a good model. And I have indeed ridden a Batman clone at Six Flags Great Adventure. It was my first inverted roller coaster. I remember being heavily intimidated by this thing. And it's crazy, very forceful, awesome ride. I love the Batman clones. And yeah, they definitely, I think that this ride and this model in particular very clearly changed the whole trajectory of like B&M's place in the roller coaster and amusement industry, and cemented them as being like a pioneer and cemented them as being one of the best, certainly. So awesome ride, first inverted Batman the Ride at Six Flags Great America, followed by many clones in the years to come.
Many clones. Some not called Batman.
Yep. But a lot of them called Batman.
But the model is called Batman. They literally named the model Batman.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was 92. So same year they were still doing, they were doing stand-ups for a while, but we didn't put all of them on here because they kind of just alternated between trying new stuff and building the stand-ups. Mm-hmm. So the next one, I haven't been on it, but it's honestly like one of the most photogenic, arguably, I guess, B&Ms.
Yeah. Legendary coaster.
Which is Kumba in 93, their first sit-down coaster at Busch Gardens, Tampa.
Yeah, I wish it was at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg.
And if you're watching the visual podcast, I have the famous corkscrew photo from it, which is, again, another probably coaster that's been in textbooks and shit.
Yep. I often wish that Kumba was at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg instead of the empty plot of land where Drakenfire used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never ridden it either. It's on my list for this year to get down to Tampa and visit my father and ride the collection at Busch Gardens, Tampa.
You got a good relationship with B&M.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. So that's Kumba, the first sit down. I added this one in because I felt like it was kind of like a change in things. Which was next would have been, I guess, the big milestone in their career would have been Mantis at Cedar Point, which was like the first like larger scale stand up coaster from them. Yep. Is the way I worded it.
Yeah, which has now been converted.
Yeah, also converted, but I'm sure it's probably because it's bigger. I don't know. It might.
I've heard it's good.
Yeah, I've heard that. I haven't been there since it's been converted, but this is my.
Did you ride Mantis?
Yeah.
Oh.
I rode his Mantis. It's my only B&M stand-up I ever read.
You didn't have that on your list. I didn't even know you rode that.
Well, I thought I added it. I don't know.
Damn.
Yeah, last time I went to Cedar Point was the year before they converted it. So Mantis, they're doing this with a lot of the stand-ups now. They put their floorless train on it, which we're going to get to in a second. It's basically a sit-down, just without the car around you. It's just seats on a track almost. Yeah, I wanted to add that in because I feel like after this one, every stand-up coaster that came after it was bigger.
Yep.
Maybe was Mantis always the largest one? That I don't know. Yeah.
I do not know.
I remember when it opened, it was like records, stand-up records, the way they marketed it. But I can't remember if they made one bigger than that as they went on. Because it is Cedar Point, you know. You know how they are with their records. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then after that, they kind of moved into trying some new stuff over the next few years. And in '98, they introduced the dive coaster concept with Oblivion at Alton Towers, which obviously neither of us have ridden. I've never been to the United Kingdom.
I looked at it a lot on Roller Coaster Tycoon too.
Yeah, and it looks like a cool ride, like especially like the theming around that one in particular. But yeah, I don't know, like dive coasters are kind of hit or miss with the enthusiast community, I feel like. But for me, they're awesome. Like I love this model. It's kind of a one trick, I guess. Like that's what people like to say. But if the trick is really good, then it's really good. And I love dive coasters. And yeah, they kind of like, I don't know, just to like touch on what a dive coaster is for people that might not know. You've probably seen one before. Typically it's a straight vertical drop or a maybe slightly less than vertical or slightly more than vertical. How do you even say that?
I think it's always exact. It never goes past or under.
Vertical? I thought they went a little bit past on at least one or two, but maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know. I have to look it up.
But typically the cars are really wide, only a handful of rows, and they hold you at the top of the first drop, and then drop you vertically, and that's the dive. There are dive loops, which are a really fun element. Enormous track. I feel like we've talked about this already when we talked about the Busch Gardens Williamsburg episode with Griffin.
We mentioned that. I remember it.
But huge track, like very good to look at roller coasters, for lack of a better term. Like every time I see Griffin, like it's very like it's a breathtaking roller coaster. Yeah, fun model. I don't know. I don't really have much else to.
I guess I kind of want to try to explain or try to give someone an idea who's never seen one in person how big it is because it's so impressive.
Yeah. Yep.
I would say imagine like a decent size SUV. It's honestly probably maybe even wider than that.
It's gotta be. Yeah. I feel like normal roller coaster track is pretty close to like a car size. It's bigger than an SUV.
God, I don't even know. Maybe like a school bus.
It's huge. It's huge. That's the important part. And the trains are enormous too.
Yeah.
What are they typically like 3 rows, 10 across.
I think it's 8 is the smallest. They might have
I was trying to think of Griffin. I thought Griffin held 30 people.
Yeah, I think Griffin is. Oh, what is it? I'm gonna get mad at myself.
It's not worth.
Yeah, I'm not gonna remember. I think the smallest one is 8 across. 2 rows, I believe. The smaller ones only have 2 rows.
Yeah. It's just I think the important takeaway from all of this, from this particular tangent that we're on, is that
ourselves.
The trains, as opposed to being a bunch of small cars in a row, are really long and wide, or really wide, not long, really wide, and hang over each side of the track. And there are a whole bunch of people in just a couple of rows. So it's a really small, compact, but very wide ride vehicle.
Yeah.
And that just kind of changes the way that ride feels. Yeah, cool. I like dive coasters, man. Simple
I like
as
dive
that.
coasters.
Simple as that.
Me too.
I'm a simple man.
Good thing
but yeah,
you caught. Good thing you caught my mistake on this next one right before we started today.
Yeah, we almost had a little boo boo here, but
we almost probably got hunted down. To be honest.
Yeah. I knew this all along too. I just had to read through your notes thoroughly to find it.
I don't know where I read it. If I read it somewhere, or if if they just brought up Nitro instead, because I don't know.
It's just like not even close to right, you know.
Yeah.
But we are hinting at the beautiful, the wonderful debut in 1999 of the B&M Hyper Apollo's Chariot at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, one of my favorite roller coasters of all time at my home park. An absolutely amazing machine. And yeah, it was the first Hyper. And honestly, I haven't ridden a B&M Giga, so I will say confidently with my whole ass chest that B&M Hyper is my favorite B&M model. It might be my favorite model of roller coaster all the way around, actually. There is something different about what B&M has done with their Hypers that just
the kings of floater.
So beautiful. So beautiful. Heavenly stuff.
Is it the only their first Hyper was a terrain one, which is crazy in my head, kind of thinking about that. Because there's not many terrain B&M Hypers after this one, I don't think.
There's a lot of parking lot B&M Hypers.
There's a lot of parking lot B&Ms. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a park thing or if they just are comfy building on some pavement.
There's two of them right next to each other at Six Flags Great Adventure in Superman and Green Lantern.
Yeah.
Just straight concrete and cars behind them. It's great. Excellent.
Jeez. Then we got, moving on, 99 as well.
1 month later.
Medusa. Great Adventure again.
Another coaster that I rode at a very young age.
Yeah, I'll let you take this one. You got more to say about it again. You've been on it.
Sure. Yeah, no, this coaster was awesome when it opened as Medusa in 99. The first floorless, which to me, like, really changed B&M's concept of the sit-down coaster. So you'll see it broken up into sit-down coasters, floorless coasters. Essentially, they took the floor out of the sit-down coaster. So you're still sitting, you're not standing, you're not inverted, nothing like that. But it does similar things in terms of the elements, except your feet are dangling. Which if you've ever been on one of these coasters, you know it's just more fun that way. It feels free. Instead of being confined inside of a car, you feel like you're just kind of flying around. Your feet are dangling and it's fun. And everybody kicks their feet around as soon as the floor drops. Yeah, Medusa is now called Bizarro. It's still good. It's certainly not one of my favorites in the park anymore because they've improved their lineup so much since 1999. But yeah, really cool coaster. And again, like in my mind, kind of like did away with B&M's need to produce more standard sit down coasters. They've done some, and the big one that they did, which we'll touch on next, is something a little different. But in terms of stuff like Kumba, instead of doing things like that, they did a lot of floorless, and there are tons of B&M floorless out there. And then additionally, as we've talked about, they converted a lot of the some of the sit downs. They put the floorless trains on the sit downs to make them also B&M floorless coasters.
Stand ups.
What did I say?
Sit downs.
Yeah, same thing.
No,
just the opposite.
Just the opposite.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm highly caffeinated.
God, you've been on like all of these. Almost.
Yeah, I've ridden the next two as well.
Yeah.
3 technically.
Next one's Hulk. Universal.
Yep.
Another stepping stone in the B&M timeline with the first. Not only there's a clone. There's a clone now.
Yeah.
And also the other type that launches that we'll get to.
Yeah.
But first go to launch.
Talk about the Hulk?
Sure. I could say it looks cool. It has a tunnel. And you do a little 0G out of the tunnel. Or maybe even a corkscrew. It's kind of drawn out. I don't know what I've heard it called both, so who knows. And it's green, which is my favorite color, so props.
Me too. Love that color. And yeah, no, the Incredible Hulk coaster is iconic, right? Like that is like up until pretty recently, that's like the signature ride of Islands of Adventure. And it's awesome. It's still good. Again, like I rode this most recently, like 2 years ago. It's still awesome. But yeah, it's a launch. It was their first ever launch. It's an awesome ride. And they also, at the same park, built a pair of dueling inverted coasters called Dueling Dragons. Which literally, listen, we've been over this. I haven't ridden Hagrid's. I heard that it's awesome.
You're still in pain. I understand.
Yes. Dueling Dragons was everything. Everything. Take the perfect product that is the B&M invert, give it its best layout possible, make it dual, and then theme it to universal levels, and you have a 10 out of 10 perfect ride. Amazing ride. It was they rethemed it to Harry Potter, still slapped so hard, just so great all the way around. Real shame that it was removed. That they were removed. Yeah, one of the very few B&Ms that have been removed. Yeah.
What was depressing? I mean, they just it stopped dueling before that because I guess they said it was too dangerous.
Yeah, people's shit was hitting other people.
Cell phones came along.
Hurt. Like 2 people got hurt at one point, and then that was the end of the dueling, which that was the whole purpose of that one.
Yup. Cell phones ruined another thing.
What an awesome
grumpy old people.
Do you have a picture of that for the podcast?
I didn't. I threw a Hulk one in, but
okay, that's cool. That's just as great to look at. But like the blue and red track next to each other, the dueling loops, just that iconic photograph is just so. If you can Google it, just somebody, if you're listening, go look it up.
Dueling Dragons or Dragon Challenge.
Dragon Challenge.
You'll get it either way.
Yeah.
Well, no.
Awesome ride.
Did it ever duel as Dragon Challenge?
I want to say no, but I don't want to commit to that.
Yeah, I don't know. Just do Dueling Dragons. You'll probably get dueling pictures that way, at least. So.
Yep. All right, now it's your turn. A couple that I have never.
I'll take this one for the lads.
Let's go.
Shout out UK boys. I know you listening. Hopefully you didn't ditch us.
We haven't charted in a couple weeks, so they must have.
All right. 2001, the new millennium, baby. They decided to make a flying roller coaster. First one is Air at Alton Towers, which is now Galactica because they added VR to it. I know that. I don't think they changed paint or anything.
Don't want that. I'm good without that.
I know I did do a VR coaster. They tried it at Kennywood one year on Skyrocket.
I've seen pictures of that. Yeah, I wouldn't want to do that. That'll make me throw up.
Anyways, yeah, this was another. Did they do the first one?
No.
Vacoma did it first.
Vacoma did, and I like this story too. Unfortunately, I have another tidbit here.
This is in your documentary, huh?
I was more prepared than you thought I was. I kind of hustled you by not putting anything in the notes, but I have it all up here. I really like this story because they saw what Vacoma did with the Flying Dutchman and like saw how unreliable it was and how it was kind of rough. And they basically said, like, we're going to do that better. Like, we're going to make that better. And the primary thing that they didn't like was that the trains on the Vacomas, you're laying on your back.
Yeah.
That's how you start. Like you lean, you get in and you're sitting like this, and then they put you all the way back, and then you're laying on your back, and then you leave the station like head up, like, which is really a strange experience. They didn't like that, and they said, no, forget that. We are just going to literally put you in, and you're going to be like in the flying position for the duration of the ride. And having ridden both of these models, I think the B&Ms are just like way better, light years better. Obviously a lot more comfortable too. Well, I wrote a clone of the next one, which is their first large scale flying coaster, which was Superman Ultimate Flight at Six Flags Over Georgia. I've ridden the clone at Six Flags Great Adventure, and that was one coaster that the first time I rode it, I didn't expect to like it that much. Like, I don't know, it just seemed like something that I don't know. I didn't know what to expect. It was my first flying coaster ever. Thing hits. It hit. The forces are nuts. I'm telling you, the bottom, dude, the bottom of the loop is like some of the most intense forces I have ever felt in my life. Like, I mean, no
imagine
bullshit.
We're gonna get off track here, but let's nerd out for a second. Imagine the Tatsu one, dude.
Yeah.
Like, you've been on the smaller version, and people freak out about that pretzel loop on Tatsu. So
I would like to ride that someday. Just write that down in the liner notes, please. I would like to ride.
Chris wants to ride Tatsu.
I would like to ride Tatsu someday.
All right, got it.
Yeah, cool ride. Honestly, Superman Ultimate Flight. It was also my nephew's favorite. Second favorite behind El Toro, because he's a connoisseur of roller coasters and he knows what's good. But he was pretty thrilled about the concept of flying like Superman. So one of the rare times that I feel like Six Flags kind of nailed the theming. Like, you're fucking flying like Superman. That's easy. That's low hanging fruit. But good stuff. Good ride.
Yeah. So that leads us to, what year are we on, folks? 2005. So also, I don't know. Did we point out they've built tons of coasters in between these? These are just ones.
Just some milestones.
Yeah, I don't know if we clarified that. I feel like we maybe did, but these ones we just feel are the most important ones. Not necessarily the best.
Yeah, just milestones.
So yeah, the next one, Shikra, which was the first larger scale dive coaster model they did. Busch Gardens, Tampa again.
Yep. And Busch Gardens, Williamsburg got Griffin.
Yeah.
Its counterpart.
I haven't been on Shikra, but I feel like I would still ride for Griffin harder. Like, Griffin, my boy.
I'm a Busch Gardens Williamsburg simp, so you already know that,
dude.
There ain't nothing. Busch Gardens Tampa, until Iron Gwazi opens, there's nothing that they can throw at me that I'll like more.
Dude, all I know,
Williamsburg offers me.
One of my most exciting coaster experiences is Griffin. So, B&M dive coasters, wow.
Yes,
I haven't been on a smaller one, but I'm assuming the larger ones are better. So, wow.
That's an interesting opinion you have there. Thought Emperor was gonna rip harder because it was smaller. What happened to that?
I said it might be more forceful, not necessarily better. People like to call these forceless, which is obviously not true.
Not only is it not true, but even if it was, like, there's fun. Like,
Dude, the bottom of the hill, the first drop. How could you say that's forceless? How?
God. I love that ride. I miss Griffin. I haven't been on it since they reopened it this year.
Damn.
Sidetracked. We're totally
just thinking about Griffin. Just daydreaming about Griffin, bro.
Dude, night rides. Night rides. Griffin with the cool hair. Oh my god.
So yeah, that was Sheikra, but we're talking about Griffin because we've been on Griffin.
Yeah.
Not even the same layout, but
I'll be able to come back and tell you about it. We'll see.
Sheikra. Probably I'd say another big pop culture one for them, maybe.
The Dive?
Or Sheikra specifically. Another one that would have been in like random like textbooks, stuff like that.
Yeah, I could see it. Photogenic.
Just because of what it does. And I remember definitely seeing like Travel Channel stuff about it, which is also what I would consider like showing up in pop culture,
bleeding into the mainstream.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of forceless, in 2011 they debuted their wing coaster model with Raptor at Gardaland in Italy.
You've been on one?
Essentially, I have been on one, and essentially, this is what it sounds like, which is that instead of sitting on the track or below the track, you are hanging from the side of the track like wings. And I have ridden Wild Eagle at Dollywood, and it's sick. It's awesome. I know the reputation.
Tell the people what happened to you.
What happened to me?
Tell the people.
I don't know what happened to me.
Let them know you're a chump. Dude, you told... Come on.
I don't remember.
You grayed out on Wild Eagle.
No, that wasn't me. That was Taylor. You have myself and my girlfriend confused. I don't gray out on anything. So I especially did not gray out on Wild Eagle. I promise you.
Okay.
Taylor grayed out on Wild Eagle, which does indicate that it has some forces. But no, it does. And that's what I want to like make really clear. Like I'm joking when I say, speaking of forceless, they have forces and it's really fun. And I love
forces.
I'll tell you what I love about the wing coaster is that it genuinely it takes like sort of the freedom feeling of the floorless of your feet dangling and adds a whole different element to it, and it genuinely feels like you're flying. It not flying on your chest or on your back like this on the flying coasters, but flying in a different way. And they're very graceful. They're the elements and the transitions are really big. I really like it. I like wing coasters. I don't understand the hate they get. I think they're cool and they're people eaters because GP loves them too.
Another bigger looking one, right? The tracks are bigger on these, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing that I wanted to touch on before that I want to make sure I remember is that something that I like about B&M is that for the most part, all of their track looks the same, like it's recognizable, but it varies in size and the spine and there's small differences between the different models. But if you took a B&M invert track, flipped it over and stretched it this way, it could be a dive track, right? Like you can just it's so standardized. And I really like that about B&M, and they look really good. They look really, really, really good. They're good. Like in my opinion, Aero coasters visually did not age well. Vacomas visually did not age well. They do not look good. B&Ms, the oldest B&Ms, the tracks still look modern and classic and nice. And I just think it's interesting that it's standardized across all of the different types. They have so many different models of roller coaster. And the track for the most part is standardized.
I feel like arguably one of the best manufacturers to add to like your park skyline.
Oh God,
like every single model just like is a statement in the park.
Yeah.
Like just these things most of the time tower over whatever's around it, especially because the track's so big on all the models. Really, it's oversized on all of them.
Well, that's kind of like what I what I think of, like, even before I would consider myself to be an enthusiast. I
Mm.
don't even think I knew who the manufacturer was, but I knew what this type of roller coaster was. And so, like, at Great Adventure as a kid, like, I knew that Batman the Ride and Nitro were the same, right? That
Yeah.
they were similar and that they were both really good. And so I kind of have this association, I feel like a lot of people do, is that you see a coaster that looks like that and you know it's going to be good and you know it's going to be quality. And that's not always true. And I will say that if I was not an enthusiast and didn't know about Firebird a couple weekends ago when I wrote it, I would have looked at it and been like, "Oh, this thing's going to be awesome. Like I've seen this type of ride before. This thing's going to slap." It didn't, but usually it does, right? Like typically you see a B&M, you know you're going to get a good ride, at least a good ride, usually great.
Mm.
Um, but it's recognizable, like it's iconic in that way to me, in a good way. It's a positive association that you see the track, you know you're going to get a good ride.
Mm. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
Are you thinking about
B&M.
riding B&Ms right now?
I just keep looking at the picture we have up for Raptor. I really don't know much about the ride, but the
I don't
trains.
either.
I'm trying to figure out like what's going on with the trains because I haven't really looked into it. But
I'm gonna look.
they look cool. They look different. They don't look like just a standard wing coaster train. Something's going on there.
It's pretty standard. It's just got a cool theme to it, I think.
Also, I'm stupid. I've been on one of these.
Gatekeeper.
Yeah. I don't know why
Yeah.
I just like took that out of my brain, but
It's supposed to be a good one too. I've never ridden it.
yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, the keyhole things, I think make it worth it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Very
also,
cool.
I don't get why people would want a wing coaster to be like snappy and like crazy. That's why I don't understand the argument of them being like not forceful enough and like the
I
whole
like
thing
that they're
about it.
drawn out.
Yeah. The whole thing
I
about
like
it
that.
to me, I feel like you too, we've talked about it before, but they're supposed to be graceful. It's like you're
Yes.
flying. I don't
Yes.
know.
I'm telling you, like Wild Eagle, very specifically, like going up the lift hill over like what is essentially a mountain, like the side of a mountain, and then cresting that hill like on wings is genuinely beautiful. Like it's a beautiful experience. It's
Yeah.
really, really fun and it's graceful and it's drawn out. And not every roller coaster has to make you feel like your body's being like put in a blender either. Like, that's why I like hypers is it's really graceful and like, you know, kind of it's nice. It's not painful and like I don't feel like my insides are being flipped to my outside.
Respect.
I like forceful coasters, but I also like coasters that aren't as forceful. Both can be true.
I feel that. Yeah, 2012 I guess is like when stuff got kind of real, bro. They started
Okay.
building gigas, bro.
Yep. Yes, they did.
And that means, for anyone who does not know, over 300 feet.
Yeah. What's a hyper? Why don't we talk about that too? Since we never did for some reason.
Oops. Hyper. I feel like we did. I mean, last episode, but maybe someone didn't listen to it. Did we not?
I don't think we.
There was an episode we talked about Magnum Millennium Dragster because we talked about them coining the terms
maybe we did.
hyper, giga, strata.
Let's just remind dear listener that a hyper is 200, a giga is 300,
Listen
a strata
here.
is
If you listen to
400.
us and you don't know this by now. No, I'm kidding.
We watched a really cool video the other day about 500-foot roller coasters.
Let's not
Pretty
start.
good.
Let's not start, please.
Anyway, first giga coaster, Leviathan at Canada's Wonderland.
Theme 2A. What is a Leviathan?
It's like a creature, like a dragon.
It's like a lot, like Nessie.
Kind of.
Or more like a dragon.
I don't fucking know.
I'm looking at the sign in the picture. I'm like, what is that?
It has a cool sign. By all accounts, a super great ride. But yeah, their first Giga, but not last.
Not last. They're still cooking with this. And I guess this is one neither of us are really too familiar with because none in the US yet.
Might never be.
The most recent model they have introduced is a family inverted coaster.
Yeah, reminds me a lot of the Vacoma family inverts.
And these are they got 2-seater trains on these, which they have all their. Now that I think about it, we never mentioned all their trains are 4 seats or more across. I wouldn't really the hyper ones, the scattered ones or whatever.
Yeah, that doesn't count. I don't count that.
I wouldn't count
you're right.
that.
You're right.
I've
never thought about that.
We didn't mention that, and now it just clicked in my brain that like they're about.
I've never even. It's not even that it just clicked in my. I've never thought about that before.
I've thought about that. How have you not?
I've just never. I don't know. I've never put it together. That's weird. That's cool. I love sitting next to strangers. Thanks, B&M. You know what's cool is right now because of COVID, if you brave an amusement park, you can sit by yourself in a nice long B&M row because you're not allowed to put groups together. I had a nice young man sit next to me on Firebird, and I said, "Nope, this is my row. Sorry, get out."
But yeah, B&M.
Good point.
Shout out for being about that capacity. Respect.
Yep. Also, shout out to the rows 4 and 5 double seatbelt seats.
Stop, bro. Don't blast me.
I love the forces in row 5, dude. Let me tell you. Holy.
Shout out that red seatbelt, though.
Sometimes I fit. By the time I have lunch at the park, I don't fit anymore. But I in the morning,
a belly on me. I need that extra inch on the seatbelt.
Yes, sir. You know, I know we have other stuff to move into here, but I had a thought while we were talking about this stuff leading up to this episode, which is that I have this kind of like weird fear. Like B&M is still putting out great roller coasters, right?
Yeah.
But they haven't done anything new in a while. Like actually new, right? Like you just said it, their latest like new thing was a family inverted coaster that has not been picked up, right?
We have that surf coaster rumor though.
But it's a rumor, right? So they actually haven't done anything new. What's their last new thing was a Giga, which they just made the hyper bigger. And then they had the wing coaster in 2011. So for a company that was like constantly innovating over, 2 decades or 3 decades, they kind of haven't done anything new in a while.
I guess I could add on top of that maybe to be like, we've always known them for being, they usually play it very safe with their coasters.
Yeah.
And also we have not mentioned this for some reason, which I'm like smacking myself in the head. These are probably the most reliable coasters out there.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So I feel like maybe they're more about the quality of things rather than innovating at this point.
I just think it's worth pointing out the contrast.
Yeah.
Which is
for
to say that RMC shook up the whole game, and we won't get too far into that, but RMC shook up the whole game when they started building stuff. Intamin, the newer Intamin stuff that they're building is like nut job shit. Like they're really like, we've talked about this before, but they're really like, they're creating some unbelievable stuff.
Yeah.
And B&M, I think of their last couple installations, like last year was Candymonium, which by all accounts is a good coaster, but doesn't do anything different and is not the best of the model that it is. And so I'm kind of like, I don't know. I'm kind of musing out loud here that like some of these other companies are like continuing to push the concept of roller coasters forward. And I'm kind of wondering if B&M has slowed down on that front.
Yeah, because now you have my brain working because essentially you can look at even like Carowinds and Canada's Wonderland have a hyper and a giga each, and you could arguably say that's the same exact coaster model.
Yep, it pretty much is.
Taller. One's taller than the other, and one focuses more on like turns, while the other is more just hills, repeating hills. But I mean, when you really break them down, besides having different trains, I guess slightly different, because both those parks I think have the scattered hyper trains, and then on the gigas they have the 4 across.
Yep.
But you could, I guess, argue that they're the same thing.
Yeah.
In the same park.
And they built their first hyper in 1999. And they're still kind of doing that same thing. I would argue that's their most popular model. Is the hyper giga, hyper / giga, but they've only built, how many gigas have they built? 3, 4?
Orion, Leviathan,
Orion, Fury. What am I forgetting?
Is that it?
It might be it. And so that's what I'm saying is like 2012 was the first giga. They obviously haven't been that popular. They haven't built more than a handful in almost 10 years. Yeah. I'm just saying this is not intended to like talk badly about B&M. I just kind of wonder if they're like more settling into sort of a position of, we have the models that we want to build. We know what works. Obviously they've done a lot of clones. They're just kind of like doing what, like you said, playing it safe. And this is simply to contrast with both Arrow, which we already talked about. Arrow's inability to innovate pushed them out of the market, right? Number one. And then also to contrast with companies we will talk about later, Intamin, RMC, etc., that are pushing the envelope of what's possible for roller coasters. And B&M is sort of doing the same types of things that they've been doing for a while now. They're still building. They slowed down on inverts. They're coming out with a new invert, but they hadn't really built a new one in a while. The Hyper Gigas are, they're still sort of building those.
Yeah. And I don't know if you saw anything, but apparently they were looking to revamp the stand-up as well, possibly. Like a different way to go. I don't know. Yeah.
They trademarked or they copyrighted a
stand-up,
or patented a new restraint. Yeah.
Yeah. But then that kind of blended in with the surf coaster stuff, because people were kind of like, well, what if it's just the surf coaster thing? Which anyone who's not doesn't have any knowledge about that whole thing is there's a rumor that they were developing essentially another stand-up coaster, but you're in like a surfing position instead of facing forward.
I don't know about that. I know a lot of people are excited about it. It'll probably be good if it ever comes out, but I'm kind of iffy on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can wrap up this part of the discussion. It's just for the purposes of contrast and comparison, that Arrow faced ultimately the end of their company because they did not try to do anything new. They didn't try to change, or if they did try to do stuff new, it either didn't work or it caught on later or whatever. And I kind of feel like B&M is playing extremely safe more recently. And that's fine, because listen, the B&M hypers are awesome, and I will ride every single one that I come across. Always. Yep. I'll ride all the gigas, I'll ride all the inverts. They're awesome products. But I kind of feel like even just looking at my top 25 coasters, you can see the where the differentiation happens, that RMC is at number 1 when 10 years ago Apollo's probably would have been.
Yeah.
So it just kind of seems like
in the coming years, really. Because
I believe in B&M. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
But I see what you're saying, how it could possibly end up people are just gonna start being like, okay, do something different.
Well, and this is a really good transition point into the next things that you have here, which is that I would say the primary difference in making the comparison to Arrow and their, inability to innovate is that B&M is reliable and smooth and has a good reputation. And so these coasters have a vast majority. It's like 98% or something, or 99%. Because I went and checked after we had our little disagreement, that B&Ms don't get removed because they're rough or not fun or not reliable, because they are reliable and they are smooth for the most part. And there are rough ones, but out of all the ones I've ridden, I've probably ridden one that I would, or two that I would consider to be kind of rough.
Stand-ups, right? Both of them?
Yeah, the stand-ups. Yep.
Yeah. And it's just like to show, I guess, how reliable they are between the sit down, stand up, hyper, flying, floorless, giga, dive, and wing, and the family coaster. They have, I believe, exactly 120 coasters right now built, or around there, give or take. But I mean, yeah, like you said, they're just known for being reliable, smooth, excluding stand-ups, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, you got the Roar, which we kind of mentioned very early on in this episode. They sound intimidating, I would say, is the best way to say it.
Yep.
They're very loud. And I know I talked to you about it the one day, which I completely forgot to look up, but I know somewhere I've read that, like, I don't know which way it went. They either used to be solid tracks and they do more hollow tracks now, or the other way around. And I can't.
The older ones have the Roar and the newer ones don't as much.
Yeah, but I don't know which one is louder because I can't remember which way it went. But yeah, like we touched on the conversions. They're doing stand-ups to floorless. They have some of the best seats and restraints.
Yep.
The clamshell.
Yeah, I think.
Talk about the clamshell.
I love I love the clamshell, especially its ability to give me excellent airtime if I don't get stapled. Yeah, I don't know. I think, like, for me, like I said, like, I don't know that I would say that B&M is my favorite manufacturer overall, but they might be. I think that they're just, I associate them with, like, some level of prestige that, like, every single park for the most part has one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you, like, again, generally speaking, it's gonna be a good ride, and they're generally, like, really big, and like we've talked about, the track is really big. They're smooth. I don't know. I have this, like, association in my head with B&M, and this goes back to Trey's question for the beginner's
The
guide
manufacturers.
episode. Yeah, like B&M for most, even like GP that wouldn't even be able to tell you that they're B&M, they know that those are the good coasters. Like, you talk to people in Virginia about Busch Gardens and they'll say Apollo's Chariot, that's the ride. That's like the ride. Or Griffin, and those are both fucking B&Ms, like two of the best rides in the park. And they've been there for a long time, and they just continue to carry that reputation of being awesome rides. And Alpengeist, I mean, I forgot how many friggin' B&Ms. But yeah, just like a really, really good company with that has made a ton of really, really good rides. Yeah, I actually wanted to mention, I went through and looked. There are eight B&Ms in my top 25. And I think that is more than any manufacturer.
It's got to be.
Yep. So, like,
mine is
almost half of my, at least my top 20 is B&Ms.
We know what mine's rolled by.
Intamin. Yeah, we know.
Which I feel like we should do. I don't know if we could. If there would be enough information on it, but maybe do an episode on the Coaster Wars era.
Yeah, we could.
Maybe
we could even do a episode. Yeah.
But yeah, like we said, that's Intamin and B&M. They're kind of during the same time. either introducing new stuff, building taller coasters than the other. It was just back and forth stuff. But yeah, I guess we wanted to end here with B&Ms that we've been on. I know we mentioned a couple on the list that we've read.
Like I've talked about all of mine except for like a small handful.
Yeah, because most of yours are on the list now that I think about it, right?
Yeah.
All right, so I guess I'll go with mine then. And then you have some, though.
Yeah, I have a couple.
Yeah. So sit down, I've only been on one, and it's Led Zeppelin the Ride, or it was called that when I wrote it, at Hard Rock Park.
Hard Rock? Yeah, that's great.
In Myrtle Beach.
That's crazy. What a park.
I remember it being like more forceful than at least the floorless coasters that I had been on that point from B&M, which is weird because I think it was one of the newest sit-down models they ever made. I think the one at like Universal Japan or whatever may be newer, right? The one that is that where that's at? You know what I'm talking about? The Transformer.
I don't know anything about this.
You don't know about that?
No, I know about the
I
whole
thought we looked at it the one day.
Is it called Transformers something?
Decepticoaster, I think. Right? Or am I making shit up? I don't know.
Right.
Decepticoaster.
That sounds like Universal. Yep. Yes, sir.
Yeah, inverted, I think, is my most model I've been on. Yeah. Raptor, Alpengeist, Great Bear, Talon, and Banshee are my 4 inverts I've been on. Still no Batman clone. What's up with that?
I'm gonna get Great Bear and Raptor this year.
Great Bear, dude, honestly, for me, I go back and forth between Alpengeist and Great Bear being my favorite. I don't know. It's like that.
Who loves Great Bear?
Should we shout him out?
Yeah. Yeats a Pizza.
Yeats a Pizza.
Loves Great Bear. Huge fan of Great Bear.
Our buddy Yeats a Pizza, who shows up in our Twitch streams from time to time. Always be talking about Hershey Park and Great Bear.
Loves Hershey Park.
Loves it. My one and only dive coaster was Griffin, like I mentioned earlier. Hypers, Paula's Chariot, and Diamondback. Have you been on one of the scatter seat ones? I don't think so, right?
No. I'm going to ride Diamondback.
It's way more open, but it's also kind of weird at the same time. I don't know how to...
Yeah.
And then my 2 floorless models are Dominator and Hydra. The Revenge.
It's so stupid. I'm trying to shoot up to that park too at some point, just like
it's
on a
decent.
weekend.
I mean,
like a half day or something. But yeah, some of that stuff is so bad. Hydra, the Revenge. Ugh.
And honestly, I can't pick between those two which one I like more. If you were to ask me, because they're both kind of the more unique floorless coasters, really.
I like Dominator a lot.
Dominator, didn't it have the largest loop at one point?
Sure did, when it was at
in Geauga Lake. Or it was like Worlds of Fun or something at some point too. Ohio Worlds of something. I don't know. They had so many different names during that period. Yeah. But I've ridden it twice, so do I get 2 credits? Relocation credits, baby. No, I'm kidding. I wouldn't.
Yes? Question mark? I don't
know. And then my one and only wing is Gatekeeper, Cedar Point. Keyholes.
I'm surprised that you don't seem like you liked that one that much. I feel like people say it's like the best wing.
I don't know nothing to compare it to, though.
One of the best wings. Yeah, that's true.
That's the thing.
I'm looking forward to it.
It's more so just me riding it in the same day at the same park with other certain coasters.
Oh, yeah.
So it kind of was just like an afterthought, I guess. I don't know.
Part of the reason Superman Ride of Steel probably ended up being ranked so high by me initially is that all the other coasters were ass. So by comparison, it was really good because it was the one good ride at the park. But anyway, yeah, I've already talked about like a vast majority of mine, so I'll just mention the ones I've already talked about. But among the sit downs, I've ridden Incredible Hulk, Inverted. I've ridden Batman the Ride, A Great Adventure, Alpengeist, and both sides of Dueling Dragons. Rip. I've talked about my love for Alpengeist before, so I won't get too deep into that. But it's like, man, that ride still hits so hard. It's so good. It was
Tallest
amazing.
one. Still the
Yeah.
tallest one.
First drop is so awesome. It was amazing a couple weeks ago. I got like the second ride of the day, and it somehow was just ripping, absolutely ripping. So good.
Mama.
Acra. Yeah, my only dive is Griffin. Again, another coaster I've really often professed my love for. Awesome ride. For the hypers, I've been on Apollos, which everybody knows. Both of these hypers are in my top 5. Apollo's Chariot and Nitro at Six Flags Great Adventure. Just exactly what I'm looking for in that type of roller coaster. Very graceful, awesome airtime, really fun, amazing night rides on both of these roller coasters. Of the floorless, I rode Medusa when it was Medusa, and then I rode it when it was Bizarro as well. Pretty good ride. Dominator, pretty good ride. Firebird, pretty trash ride. Of the floorless, to be honest. I've ridden Green Lantern of the stand-ups. Don't like that.
I forgot to
Don't
put.
like that.
Yeah, I forgot. You're right. I did forget to put Mantis on there.
Yep.
You touched on
I
that.
don't know. There's been a couple times that I've ridden Green Lantern where I've had the seat adjustment just right, and it's forceful and it's good. I mean, it's fun. But
You gotta make sure
of the
you
time,
plant your feet flat on the ground when you're getting on those, or else you get.
Most of the time I ride it and I get off and I'm just tore up. Like I'm hurting.
You got a bicycle seat just banging the shit out of your thighs.
It feels like I was riding a bike and then I got in a crash. Like I crashed my bicycle, but the seat was stuck between my legs the whole time. That's usually what it feels like.
You just came down wrong on your bicycle seat.
Yeah, not good, not good. But yeah, I talked about Wild Eagle. I like that ride a lot. And then Superman Ultimate Flight at Great Adventure for the flying coasters. I've got a bunch. I got one new B&M credit already with Firebird this year. I've got a bunch on my list. Should definitely be a shakeup of my top 10, top 25 at least throughout the year. If things, I get my second shot in 2 weeks, and I'm about to go buck wild, baby. You heard it here. You're gonna see me in your state. I'm gonna pull up at your mama's crib looking for some spaghetti with some sauce, maybe a couple sausages. I'm gonna be pulling up credits. My 2020 plans were blown up with a grenade. I'm getting after it in 2021. I'm gonna hit 200 credits this year? Question mark? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe.
Dude, so there's only 2 B&M models neither of us have been on. None of them looking. As we just went over all the ones we've ridden. The family suspended, family inverted. Giga.
And Giga, yeah. Yeah.
What's up with that?
The Giga is much more easy to get than the family suspended.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get
Giga needs to happen.
I'm gonna ride Fury and Orion this year. That you have my word.
I would probably get on Orion way more easily than getting down to Fury.
I'm getting down there. It's 4 hours for me.
I want all 3, baby. I want to collect them all.
I want to go to Canada's Wonderland too. Let's go. I gotta find my passport.
Dude.
I want to ride that. Never mind. I don't want to talk about Canada's Wonderland.
Yeah, we're gonna tangent again. But yeah, that was all we have for this episode. B&M, we love you.
Yeah, truly.
We respect you.
If not my favorite manufacturer, definitely one of my favorites. Just offers a different kind of a bunch of different kinds of experiences across their models, and I like almost all of them.
Maybe not my favorite, but most consistent.
Yeah. I think so.
I don't think I've ever ran into a broken down B&M that wasn't from like excluding like weather. That's the only thing I've ever ran into where one was closed, really.
That checks out.
That's it. Episode 6 in the bag. We will see you when we see you. No, I don't. They should listen, though. We're having fun with these manufacturer episodes, I feel like. So it's just, there's so many we want to do. That's the problem.
What do you think we'll talk about next week? If you had to say it out loud on a recorded episode.
On a recorded episode?
Yeah. What do you think we'll talk about for episode 7? I want to talk about Dollywood so bad. I'm going to be honest with you, but I know you've never been. I'll just do a 25-minute solo episode about Dollywood where I just speed run telling you everything I know about Dollywood.
Why not?
Could be cool.
Why not?
Episode 6 in the books. Love you guys. Yeah. Subscribe to the YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We look at all of them so we know.
Yes. We get the notifications. I have them on my phone.
I do too.
Every sub we get on YouTube, it shows me. I know you. I know your name. I don't have that.
I'm in charge of the audio part. Thanks for listening. We love you guys.
Peace out. We love you, B&M.
Bye.